Hello, welcome back to Ask the Doctor with Dr. Jeffrey Sherman. And today we're going to be looking into about how to ease restrictions safely because we know that restrictions are being released. And so we want to make sure that people are informed on how to do it safely because the virus is still ongoing and cases are spiking because people are probably not taking the same precautions as they used to. As of June 18th, the CDC reports there are 2.1 million cases in the US and 117,000 deaths. So from a couple weeks ago, when there were 100,000 deaths, it seems that the rate has slowed down, which is good. But there are spikes now, so we have to make sure that people are taking the right precautions. Is that why they're here today? So hello, Dr. Sherman. Nice to see you
Hey, how are
again.
you? Good to be with you again. Thank you.
So both of us have a handy little chart of data collected by Yahoo Finance, which I think actually the real source is from MLive. It says anyway. It's
Yeah.
just a list of various different social activities that, or not social activities, but various risks with getting COVID-19.
Right.
And we're gonna go from the most risky to the least risky activities that you can do, and we're just gonna start off now with it says bars and large music concerts.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Yeah, both of those
Well,
I mentioned.
those are high on the list, and rightfully so, because they sort of violate all things that are required for COVID transmission. When you are transmitting COVID, no matter where you are, you got to take into account three things, and we'll get to the list in a sec. I just want to get these three things out there for the audience. One is the proximity you are to someone else. One is how many people are in that area, and thirdly is the time spent in that area.
Right.
And then also you can add, the what you're doing, the talking in that, So, for example, a bar, you're at a bar, it's a packed bar. You're not going to the bar for 2 minutes. You're going there for a few hours. It's a crowded place. It's loud. So, in order to be heard, you got to speak and enunciate. And what are you doing when you're doing that? Droplets are flying out,
Right.
and you got to talk close to the guy so they can hear you. And that's why is the bar is the riskiest place of all, because of those
Yeah.
parameters, and that's
And
what's
it's
going on.
and it's even hard. It's hard to wear mask in a bar too, because well, you're there to drink, right? So
Yeah. So mask
you're
is
gonna
not happening. A bar is full of young people, like 21 to 30 or whatever, and they're not thinking about getting this, and they're not thinking about wearing masks. So that's another thing. And a concert's the same thing. You're in a crowded place. You're next to the guy. It's a 2.5 hour concert, and you're screaming, singing the song with the concert, and droplets are flying everywhere. So another reason that the concert is a setup for a COVID transmission, and you're not going to be wearing a mask there. Maybe a little bit more likely if you were to wear a mask there than you would at a bar, but most of them not. And so for those reasons, those kind of places are, big risky places. So those types of activities are not going to be, at least concerts. I guess bars have been kind of opened a little bit, to my
right.
knowledge. That's a little crazy, but concerts aren't happening until I would say another year.
Right. Yeah, because concerts they're very large, just simply put.
Yeah. I mean, you exactly. You're doing. I mean, a bar has several hundred people in there. Maybe the concert place has thousands, so that's what makes it the worst. And you're just spreading it. You're going from thousand to. It's just
Right.
a setup for all bad stuff. So bars, I understand. Concerts, I understand, would be the last thing to open up.
Right. And okay, so I guess we got like the worst places off, and I'm sure there's people out there who are not doing these things. I mean, yes, because I mean, for one thing, music concerts aren't really happening right now because of the way they're organized, and I'm imagining that
Yeah.
the organizers don't want to organize them.
and that's a big, that employs a lot of people. The crews at each place, the crews that travel with the band, the people in the office organizing it, managers, finance people, you know, individual crews and officers at each venue on a concert tour. It's taken its toll on employment with all those important jobs.
So we have a question from the chat about the very important solution to all of this. Do you think an efficient vaccine will be made soon?
It depends on what soon is. I think we're getting a vaccine by the end of the year. Vaccines, and we've talked about this on earlier shows. Vaccines have to go through certain protocols before being approved. Those protocols, just by definition, take time. You just have to see if they work and that they're safe. But by the end of the year, I think we can get a vaccine sometime in November, December. But how it works. I mean, it's a pretty good indication how it's going to work in the community, how it works in studies. But you're still mass producing it and sending it out to millions and millions of people, and that is not how it was studied. So you never know how it's going to go. Plus, you always run you want to know if it's the one vaccine for many years, or if you have to get another booster every year, like the flu shot comes out every year in a different way. So all that'll be seen. If we can get this, I've said this to many people, if we can get this COVID to behave like the flu, that is, have the same risk of sickness and death as the flu. We take the risk for the flu all the time. I mean, we live with the flu, so if we can get the COVID to be like the flu, we'll live with it, with vaccines and therapy, and make the consequences equal to the flu. We can live with that. It's what we got to do, but it's going to take some time.
Right, because part of the reason COVID-19 has been so deadly is because it infected a lot of people very quickly, and it overwhelmed healthcare systems. The flu, before widespread vaccinations, the flu was also more deadly, but that was also because medical care was not as strong as it is today. But I imagine that if we get COVID-19 under a condition where it is like the flu, then there should be enough healthcare support every year to make sure that there's very, very few deaths.
Yeah, if we can get therapeutics, meaning if you can take a prescription medication you're feeling sick, you go get tested, you have a positive test, you get a prescription for medicine X, you take it right away, and in 3 days you're back out kicking butt. That's what we need for this to be manageable. Hospital patients are a little bit of a different story. There are some good medicines there, dexamethasone and remdesivir. You give those to hospital patients, they improve. But I'm talking the walking outpatient population. If we can get that therapy and get some of that treated, it'll be a game changer. We can ease back into society like it was 6 months ago. And we're trying to ease back into it now. It's just different. We just got to take precautions, like we were talking about earlier.
Exactly. The next level on the list, then the step down from level 9 of bars and large music concerts is buffets, sports stadiums, amusement parks, gyms, and churches. I still feel that I can see why it's a little less risky as bars and music concerts, but they're all up there. They're all up there, as rightfully so on the chart.
Yeah, I would almost put gyms up with bars and concerts. Gyms, you're on the equipment, you're sweating, you're breathing heavy, you're sweating on the machines, the treadmill, the elliptical machine. So those are now there's a little bit of a better way to control the population in a gym. You can, there's and bars too, I guess, for that matter. But bars are not going to do that. Bars are going to let everyone everybody in because they want to make the money. Gyms are a monthly membership or whatever, so they'll let, for example, my gym opened up yesterday. They said if you want to come into the gym, you got to on the app say you want to come in at whatever time you want to come in, and if there's enough space for you at that time, they'll let you in. If not, you can't. My point is they're only letting a certain number of people in the gym at one time, which is good. But still, you're huffing and puffing and out of breath, and the droplets are flying, the sweat's dripping on the machines, the showers and locker rooms are kind of tight quarters.
Oh,
so
that's right. Yeah.
It's a little risky. So with that in mind, I elected to keep my gym membership on hold and wait until things are a little bit better, whenever that may be, to reactivate my membership. And I think I'm not alone. Buffets, you're touching a lot of things, spoons and serving utensils. We all know about the virus on surfaces and things like that. Plus, you're eating in close quarters, so you don't want to, go to a buffet. And then there was sports stadiums, which is like a concert. You're not screaming as much all the time. You can be a little bit quieter at times if it's a down part of the game or whatever, but you're still sitting nearby.
Right.
I don't see sports having any fans the rest of this summer or
this year,
fall, or any time soon.
Yeah.
So all those are. You're sitting nearby, and it's all tight. Like I was saying, how close you are to the person, how long you are there for, and how many of you there are.
Yes. Yeah, because sports has, of course, the luxury of being able to be broadcast via television. So that can kind of be substituted. You don't like going to a stadium. A lot less people go to a stadium for a match than the amount of people that watch it on TV. I think I haven't looked at the actual data, but I think that's a fair guess.
If you want to watch the event, you'll get the best seat on TV. You go to the stadium for the what they call the stadium experience, the walking around, the souvenirs, the food, the drinks, maybe the autographs and whatever. But if you don't need that, and even nowadays, you're not going to be able to do much of that because of the COVID. So the whole stadium thing is not happening, and just too many people too close together for too long a time. So that's going to stay on the sidelines literally for I would say the rest of this year. You're not going to see even when the NBA finishes this year and goes into next in December, let's say, fans aren't going to be even on that, I don't think.
Let's see. We have a question from the chat about what exactly makes COVID-19 different from all other viruses. Like why are we so shocked about this one?
It's the transmission. I mean, you can affect people. It's the transmission. The flu, you can do the same activities with the flu and not affect anybody because the virus won't take. If the innocent victim breathes in the virus, the flu virus doesn't always set up shop in the recipient. This COVID hits the recipient and it sticks like glue. I mean, that's what's going on.
Okay.
It's the way it hits the mucosa of the recipient and latches on. The flu virus doesn't latch on like that. It does in some, but it's not as it's not as sticky, let's say. So it's not going to hit. So the R number, the number of people infected, is much lower in the flu virus than it is in the COVID-19. The R number, the R naught as they call it, is how many people one person can infect by being close by.
That rate's important.
It was about 3.5 back in March for the COVID, and the flu is about 1.
Right. So that's large.
One person hits 3, and it sticks to them because the virus sticks to that person, the recipient, much more closely than it would to the flu. And one person would just affect 1, and before you know it, the whole population is going to get the COVID if you're not careful. Right. That's why we shut things down back in March.
I believe
the nature of the virus that makes it so transmissible and so contagious.
And I mean, the physical structure of the virus, I guess the physical structure of the virus is what enables it to be sticky. Obviously, the genetics of the virus is like how it does things to our body, because it's a virus that affects a lot of parts of the body because it seems to affect blood vessels and like the blood, so it gets everywhere.
Yeah, it can circulate. It hits the lungs primarily. You breathe it in, and as we've talked about, it's got these receptors on the outer layer, and they attach to the. I mean, it's got these, these spikes, let's say, and it attaches to the lung receptors. The spikes are all over the place, and so if this one misses, that one will hit, or if both those miss, the other one will hit, and it'll just hit the lungs and get absorbed and double and double and double. Before you know it, your lungs are really inflamed. Those outer spikes are held together by a layer of fat, and that layer of fat, as we've talked about before, can be easily destroyed with soap and water. It just breaks it up so easily. So the more you wash your hands, those viruses cannot, move to your nose or mouth or parts of you that you touch all the time. Keep washing the hands because it's on the surfaces.
Right, and the soap part is very important because the soap is actually what, just like you said, destroys the virus. It's not even like dirt, where dirt gets washed away.
We've got that going for us on this virus. That fat layer is so fragile, it breaks apart in a second. And every virus you have, if you wash your hands with soap and water, it will be off your hands real easily.
The next couple items on this list of severity of risk COVID-19 transmission, on the 7 tier, there's basketball, public pools, and schools. Interesting, I feel that basketball is lower than sports stadiums, but I guess that's because of it's talking about playing basketball.
Yeah, playing basketball. As you may know, you've seen basketball. Whether it be pro or recreational, bodies are up against each other, and you're sweating, but there's a little bit, and then you're touching the ball, and many different. You're one ball for many players, so you're touching the same ball. You're up against each other, leaning, backing in, elbowing. You're doing a lot of touching and sweating. So that's risky, but there's some separation that can occur in basketball too. It's played in a big 94-foot court. You're not face to face with the guy every second, so there is a little bit of distance there. That's probably why it's a notch or two below. But you're not wearing a mask when you're playing basketball, and or at the park. You go for a pickup game. You're not wearing a mask. It's not my first choice of activity that I would do coming out of this quarantine, but it's good exercise, and young people play it, so they think they don't have to worry. But it is still a risk with the proximity of sweaty bodies.
Yeah, the virus doesn't transmit through sweat. Do we know that?
No, it's not the sweat, but you're breathing heavy and you're breathing right on a guy. But the sweat droplets, I don't believe have that's just salt water.
I wasn't even sure if any viruses do.
Yeah.
Right. On that same list, there's
schools on that list there. Just to jump in, you can separate at school a little bit, so it's not as high as the other activities. You're not yelling and screaming. You can wear a mask sitting in class, so that would be helpful. It's the outdoor recreation part of the school that you got to be careful, the PE and the recess and stuff like that. But there's ways to overcome proximity during a school day, I'd say.
And I believe an important thing for all of these things on this list is there a good substitute for them? Because in the case of school, there's a way to do online learning because technology is so widely available and abundant now. You can often be able to do your work on the internet, and maybe even have like a camera to where you can video chat your classes, and it's not bad. It's much better than being gone from school entirely.
Yeah, it's a definite alternative. You got that. There's no other things we've talked about. There are no real substitutes for them. Like I said, you can keep fans away from stadiums, and for sporting events, you can separate a little bit during a basketball game. But the online school is an excellent option for school. Is it your first choice? No, you'd much rather be in the classroom on a college campus, with your
Yeah.
friends. There's a social part of school too that you're not getting on the online. The learning aspect and all that, absolutely. Keep in mind, not every student learns the same way. Some are more of a visual learner, interactive learner. Others can do just fine online. So it is a little bit of a trick there, getting everybody on the same
Hmm.
page. But when it comes time to fulfilling a curriculum and being able to award credits or classes, you can do it that way, and that makes school a little bit a little bit more flexible.
Now there's a lot of items on the sixth tier, which is now we're approaching the middle tier of risk factor. Although I just realized there's no real frame of reference on this tier list of like
Yeah,
there's no rate, I
compiled by
guess.
Yahoo Finance, and they did a little bit of research on it. But this is just a framework. Many people can sort of differ on how they think these particular activities
Yeah,
rank on the scale.
it's exactly. And on the sixth tier, there's things like casinos,
Yeah,
restaurants with indoor seating, playgrounds, hair salons, barbershops, pontoon boat rides,
yeah,
movie theaters. Where's the boat rides come from?
yeah. I don't know. I haven't been on a pontoon boat ride in a long time, so I don't know. You're in a closed space. Who knows?
I
That's not
imagine.
exactly a thing that most people think about doing all the time. I want to focus on casinos a little bit. I would have
Yeah,
thought those would have been a little bit more risky.
yeah,
Close
even more.
the way it was. I mean, think about it. You're touching cards, you're touching chips, you're
Yes,
touching
the
dice,
cards and chips, they're spread
you're
everywhere.
smoking, you're inhaling, exhaling. That I'm talking like that's a typical Las Vegas casino. A lot of people are touching cards at a poker table. A lot of people are touching cards at a blackjack table. Chips all over the place. You're reaching for a glass for your drink. You're touching your face. You're close by people. You're screaming, "Yeah, we won! Yeah, woo!" And your droplets are flying everywhere. So I think a casino would be a little bit higher on the risk list. I would kind of think that. And Other things a little bit quieter, like a restaurant. It can be an indoor seated restaurant. You're with your family and you can separate from the other people. You're not screaming as much,
Right.
or a playground. You can separate a little bit. A hair salon, you can wear a mask, and it's a one-on-one encounter on a hair salon. It's not such a big crowd, so that isn't such a. But you're close by. You're in close proximity.
You
But
are.
you want to just use the rules of how many people are involved, how close you are, and for how long a time are you there. My haircuts take about 15 minutes. Others sit in the chair getting their hair colored for hours. I mean, you just got to weigh the risks and benefits, but they are pretty close when they're cutting your hair, so you got to take that into consideration.
Right. And one thing with the I guess with in general, you should always be careful not to, if you know that you've been touching things that could be infected or could be at risk for anything really, like not just COVID-19. This rule
Right.
kind of just applies in general. Um, if you think that you've been touching things that are at risk, then try to be aware of it and not like touch your face. That's very important. Not to touch your face because stuff will get in there. And try not to touch other objects that you might touch again later and then forget to disinfect. Like what I mean is like your smartphone,
Yeah.
because I mean, smartphones are very useful, and we kind of need to use them all the time. So it can be almost impossible to not also touch your phone with dirty hands. But that just means you have to remember to clean your phone a little bit
Right. You should,
once.
be remembering to clean things you touch all the time, like your phone or your wallet or keys. Keep,
Doorknobs.
doorknobs. Keep disinfecting those a couple times a day. But yeah, you got to make a conscious effort to not touch your face when you're going out in public. We talked about wearing gloves. I don't think that's much of an advantage. I think you just got to keep your hands away from your face and sanitize and wash as much as you can. And the surface part of things will take care of itself. If you're washing your hands and not touching your face, the virus that's left on surfaces isn't going to get to you. It's the transmission through the droplets that will, and that's avoided by, like I said, staying away from close distances, time, number of people, and so on. So you just got to be careful about touching. Just got to make sure you clean those items thoroughly with hand sanitizer or alcohol itself.
Right. And I know that like a lot of smartphones these days are not very susceptible to water. Like they have to be sunk in water for it to really matter. Like you should be able to have a cloth and wipe the surface around with soap and water or alcohol.
Yeah, if you want to do it that way, that's good. You don't always have an alcohol wipe or alcohol nearby for your phone, which is better because it kills the virus most and it'll evaporate and won't damage your phone. But even a quick, you're not submerging your phone in the sink, so use the quick wash that way.
Yes. And I think, let's see, anything else interesting on the sixth list? I guess there's movie theaters. Movie theaters, it's a large space with a lot of people that are in there for 2 hours. So I imagine that there's going to be a lot of shared air.
Yeah.
Now people aren't yelling, so that's good. People aren't really
yelling. They can.
Yeah, people aren't speaking.
They can space you out in the theater a little bit.
They can.
So you're a little bit of a distance there. That's probably what they would do, or how they started that. But you're not yelling, and hopefully you can space out, so that's good. But you are in the area for 2.5 hours. If you're watching The Irishman, you're there for like 4 hours.
Oh,
so
yeah.
You're sitting there a while, so just be aware of that and be careful. You can certainly wear a mask in the theater too. It's no big deal. It makes popcorn eating a little tricky, but it's still not a horrible activity.
You might even be at more risk, I imagine, actually, at the movie theater bathrooms, because
any public bathrooms,
any public bathroom. But I was just thinking at movie theater ones because movie theaters, a movie ends and then all those people go to the bathroom at once, and then it can be kind of crowded. So
so you want to try to avoid that. Same thing.
Don't know what the
at any of those public places, try to go to the bathroom during halftime of the football game. You'll be spending your entire halftime
exactly
waiting in line.
Exactly. That is some good advice in general. The next tier down on level 5 of risk for COVID-19 transmission are dinner parties at a house, walking in a busy downtown. Wait, no, sorry, that's a different tier. Airplanes are level 5. Backyard barbecues, malls, beaches, and bowling. So I can already start to picture the visual difference of this tier and the ones before.
Yeah.
More spaced out.
More spaced out. Airplanes are a little confined. Airplanes are tricky. They can space you out a little bit there. But
it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, but you're still sitting there for several hours. You're kind of on top of each other. I would have put airplanes a little bit higher on this list. Because backyard barbecue and an airplane are different. You can spread out much more to backyard barbecue and practice distancing and get through that. That's not so risky. An airplane, you're a little bit more confined. I know they've been not selling the middle seats at some of these planes. And beaches you can spread out, so that's not bad. But bowling alleys are another thing. That's a little bit. That should be higher on the list too. You're kind of you're on top of each other on the bowling alleys. You're screaming. You're drinking. In terms of the activity of bowling, you're touching the bowling ball.
The ball.
Things like that. So that's a little bit low. I would have put that up a notch, and that on airplanes. But other doctors' waiting rooms, we space our patients out in terms of time, so the waiting room doesn't get too crowded, and our waiting room is luckily big enough to hold off on large crowds. So that's reasonable. That's why I went back to work. We can start to impose some social distancing things here in the waiting room.
And let's see, we have a question from the chat about, in an ideal world, should everyone get tested for virus on a regular basis?
I guess in an ideal world, yes. What is a regular basis? Every week, every fifth day, every day?
Right. Because it's like after you get, there's a period of time after you got your test results where you could have gotten the virus again.
Right.
And that's going to happen a lot.
I mean, I guess ideal would be every day. Everybody every day. There's no way that can happen. There's just not the testing capability. But that way you would know the second you're positive, you go away. And then that was that. But if everyone was doing it, you wouldn't have to worry about tracing. But that's not realistic. So we all should get tested once in a while, I would say. Certainly if you're feeling symptoms, get tested. If you're not and you're heading into one of these riskier kind of jobs, then maybe get tested a little bit more often than you otherwise would. We talked about sports a few weeks ago. I think the players, I think the basketball players are going to be tested either every day or every second day. So I mean they're part of that, every very frequent testing program.
On tier 4 of the risk level, we're getting down now to the less risky stuff, which is dentist's office.
Yeah.
Interesting how they put specifically dentist. Walking in a busy downtown, offices, doctor's waiting rooms. Okay, that's all of them.
I agree with that.
And then eating out restaurants. I would believe eating out restaurants are things like fast food restaurants.
Well, they're talking about like patio seating, so outdoor seating.
Oh, patio, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Eating outside.
Above it a couple of times was indoor seating, so that you're inside. Inside and outside is another thing. If you're outdoors, it's a little bit safer than inside. That's why concerts and casinos, I think, are not so great. Bowling alleys are the inside, but an outdoor seating or a sports baseball game, for example, you're outside, so it's not as bad in my opinion. Dentist office are interesting. I mean, the dentist, you're face to face with the dentist doing work on your mouth. You're not wearing a mask. The dentist would be wearing a mask. So I would have put dentist office a little bit higher up. You're really close for a good hour face to face with the dentist.
Right.
But it's just one-on-one. You're not like multiple. It's not a big crowd.
One-on-one. And the dentist is doing their part with the mask. So
and walking in a busy downtown, it's crowded. So you're amongst other people a lot, but you're passing by people. So you're not lingering in the crowd necessarily. You're just kind of whispering back and forth. And the proximity can vary. You can maybe try to, steer clear of people a little bit. So
do we know about how far the virus can travel before it destroys itself?
I mean, the heavier droplets go a couple 3 feet and dive down to the floor or the ground.
So it depends on the water droplet.
Yeah, a lighter aerosol can linger up in the air longer, for a few minutes. So if you're huffing and puffing in a light aerosol, if you're jogging and you are gone, the aerosol can linger and a person can kind of follow a minute or two later, not knowing the runner was there, and in theory pick it up. But when you're outside, it's a little bit, there is the wind and things which will disperse things and break it apart. But the bigger droplets, if you're standing face to face at a bar, the big droplet, it'll get you. And the small droplets will get you too.
Okay. And that's the importance of wearing a mask, because because viruses, even though viruses are the smallest form of life that we have seen, they're really tiny. I don't remember the numbers, but they're mere molecules in size.
Yeah, right.
They're extremely tiny.
When we talked about air filters a couple weeks ago, and that's those 0.003 microns. That's how you got to get that to trap a virus. If you don't have a filter that small, the virus will seep through it. And
that's the importance of a mask, because a mask doesn't filter at the same size as the filter that you just said filters, right? It doesn't. Right. But the key thing with a mask is that it filters out the water droplets which the virus is sitting on, because the virus can't float in the air completely by itself, can it? But generally just gets on the water.
It's within the aerosol with a little bit of a mask to it. The mask traps stuff at the mask, and instead of, and we sneeze and cough, which people do, but when we do that, or the mask then just basically shortens the
range
radius where a virus can fly out.
Yes.
Instead of 6 feet, it's
1 foot,
8 inches or whatever. I mean, it's just a big difference.
Right, because the mask, of course, it blocks large water droplets that can go kind of far, but
yeah. And large water droplets will be contained within the mask. The smaller ones may escape the mask, but go right in front of your face as opposed to everywhere out there. And if you're staying 6 feet away from a person with a mask, you're probably in pretty good shape.
Exactly. We have a good question from the chat about the concern of the rare inflammatory disease. I believe this is the inflammatory disease that was brought up in children. I don't remember the name. I think it started with a K.
There is a name yet. It's kind of like a COVID-related, inflammation that resembles something called Kawasaki's disease, which is a known children's illness. I'm not a pediatrician. I don't recall the exact, but if we're talking about that, we know there is a carpet-like rash on the trunk and arms primarily, and a fever and just a malaise or just a fatigue that is associated with that. And it's certainly no picnic. The child is cranky and it's not a lot of fun. But that's the extent of I know. I hope. I don't think it's much, but I hope that the death or the complication rate is very low. It's just very uncomfortable for the child, and it can linger a couple of weeks. That rash can just stay there. So it is. They're looking into that. I haven't heard as much about it lately. Hopefully, they're getting a little bit more, getting ahead of it a little bit. But it is some inflammation of the skin, and just in general, it's more of like an immune response problem.
Exactly, and that's exactly what this virus seems to tailor towards, is an immune response exploit, essentially.
Right.
And we don't know that. We don't know everything about the virus. I mean, that's why it was able to sneak up on us, because
we didn't know how infectious it was. We didn't know how how it lingered on surfaces so well. There's still some controversy on how much it really sticks to surfaces. I don't think it should change our behavior if you're debating if
right. like clean surfaces anyway.
Yeah, and it's the transmission. It's the vapor, the droplet transmission that we gotta just be aware of. Yeah, how sticky is it? Why is it affecting these people more than those? Why are there was reports of those blood clotting troubles in some patients? Why did these young people get it and die, and most young people don't? There's still a lot of mysteries out there.
Right. Let's go down to the next tier, which is getting down to threes. So this is like stuff that you can probably do. Getting groceries. Yes, I think you should get food. That's a pretty good idea. Getting groceries, camping. Interesting how that's on there. Hotels, golfing, and then there's libraries and museums. So I like how libraries and museums are this low, because they're public places, but they're like quiet, reserved public places. Quiet.
You can avoid people easily there. It's not a big crowd. And it's not a loud crowd, and you can space out and keep to yourself, studying quietly at a library or just kind of looking at art in a museum, hush, like that. Very easy to do. And that, you're right. Public places, activities, things to do as we're climbing out of it. Camping, the same thing. You can go with your family who you've been quarantining with anyway, go out and camp for a weekend and keep your distance from other people. Hotels, I would think, are a little bit higher on the list. You have bodies going in hotel rooms, sheets, bathrooms, and, I'm sure the staff is good at cleaning, but you never know. And
depends on the hotel, probably.
Hotel lobby can be a little bit of a,
yes, the lobby.
a populated place.
Don't touch the counter, I imagine.
Right, that kind of stuff. So I would put hotels a little bit higher up. Golfing is an excellent. It's right where it should be. You can spread out over a golf course. You walk the course with your bag and keep your friends at 6 feet distance. You touch your own clubs, you touch your own golf ball, all that stuff, no problem. So that's doable. You can, keep a distance. There's plenty of room on a golf course to keep a distance. And in fact, the golf has started. Pro golf is back in business. For that reason, they can keep a distance, and it went very well last weekend. They're playing today, another tournament this weekend. So that's all good. So golfing is an excellent activity. You can't do a golf cart yet with your friend. That's a little bit too close. And you can't go to you shouldn't go to the clubhouse and bar after your golf to, hover in a big gathering.
Right. The clubhouse is probably the riskiest place.
Yeah, well, you're in the locker room and then the showers and stuff there, or the restaurant, the bar where all these guys like to go after golf and have beer and whatever. You don't want to do that yet either. But the game itself is very friendly to the COVID.
Yeah, very solo. The last two tiers.
Ahead of myself, but tennis is the same way. You can play tennis across the court. Yeah.
Yeah, tennis is the same way.
Yeah, so that's an activity for exercise.
So the least risky things that you can do for COVID transmission, but still there is a risk of COVID transmission, are things like going for a walk or run or a bike ride. And then there's getting fuel, which, you're going to a gas station. And then getting takeout from a restaurant and actually playing tennis is down there.
Yeah, I see that now. Those all are activities that are around the same, that are brief one-on-one interactions. Getting takeout from a restaurant. Hi, I'm here to pick it up. Here you go. Bye. Gone. Not risky.
Exactly.
You do want to wipe down your containers when you get home, though.
Yes. Don't eat out your container.
Yeah. You go for a walk. You're with, if you're with the people you live with, I don't see any added risk there, so that's no problem. But just remember, other people may be walking too, so you want to, steer clear of them and pass them by. And it's not a big crowd. There's space, so that's what the going for a walk is. Getting fuel, you're probably one of several at a gas station. You want to wash your hands after touching those surfaces of the gas pump, but it's, pretty low risk. You're just by yourself at the gas station or at this pump. The other person's over there at that one. There's a distance there. And those are easily distanceable activities. And we talked about tennis, where your tennis competitors on the other side of the net, the other side of the court. Certainly no problem there. If you guys are going to be the only ones playing there for a while, you don't need to wear a mask, just huff and puff. And, everything should be gone by the time the next group hits the court. And the courts themselves are spread out, so you're not getting in the way of the players on the neighboring court. So
exactly.
Tennis is a good activity. Walking, jogging, just be careful, of the smaller droplets. The take-home message is the number of people in the area, how close you are to those people, and the time you spend in that space. Those big factors.
And those are all the things you have to consider when doing activities that you might be worried about COVID transmission. Yes, other people around you, how close are you, and how long are you going to be there? Right. Because just passing by somebody is drastically different than being in the same room as them, even if you're some distance apart.
Yeah, grocery stores are quick.
Your connection wavered a little bit. Okay, it looks like you're coming back online. You froze there for a couple seconds.
The time. Okay, there we go.
All right, looks like Dr. Sherman is reloading his connection. I mean, we're kind of at the slowdown at the end. Okay. You're back?
Okay.
All right, you're back. Right before we end off, we do have a really good question in the chat about my son is on sirolimus for GLID management. His disease usually causes a cytokine storm, which sirolimus controls. Do you think it offers him protection from, I imagine, from COVID-19? Because it,
I think so.
yeah, cytokine storm. If it,
sacrolimus is a very good.
yes.
Yeah, it's a good immunosuppressant, and it's that cytokine storm, which is your immune system going out of control. So that's like a built-in protective agent. Absolutely. Will COVID? I mean, if the immune system is a little bit suppressed, can COVID creep in and cause a little bit of a symptoms? Yes, but the cytokine storm complication will not occur, and the patient may be in for a couple of days of not feeling great, but I think would recover no problem.
Right. Okay. So you're still likely going to get it because it's not preventing the infection of COVID-19.
Right. I mean, we're all at the same risk of getting it if we, the risk of my immune system. I could be immunocompromised and never get it if I'm very careful, or everybody's immune system can be super solid but get it because they don't care. Once
exactly.
You get it though, it's you got to be careful with, but and you're not going to get the cytokines.
Yes. And we have another brief question from the chat about a recent study shows steroids or dexamethasone have been effective in helping symptoms. Have you heard that? I find that kind of interesting. Steroids.
Yeah, dexamethasone is shown. Dexamethasone is a steroid. You give it to the.
Uh-oh. Well, it looks like Dr. Sherman was saying that yes, it does. It does. Okay, you're back.
Does help. This dexamethasone, and it's cutting down on hospital.
Okay, that's good. So it cuts down on the duration that someone's in the hospital?
Yeah.
Okay.
Protective. It helps.
All right.
It's helpful to cut down on the disease, yeah.
Well, we went down the list of common activities that people like to do that do have risk of COVID-19, of what you should do in all of them. Some of them you should just stay away from entirely. And the important factors to look at are distance you are from other people, how many other people there are, and how long you are there. And then, of course, you have to still wear masks because the mask will block the water droplets from carrying the virus to other people. And you should also have a way to disinfect yourself, your hands, whether with soap or hand sanitizer.
Yeah, hand washing, sanitizer, clean surfaces when you can. Phone, alcohol swab your cell phone.
Exactly. So thank you for joining Dr. Sherman and I on Ask the Doctor. If you have any questions, if you have any more questions for next time, please email us at myworldsciencetv@gmail.com. And I will continue to search for answers to your questions and may even address them in the next episode. So please join us Thursday at 3 p.m. next week for our next show. And until then, stay safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you.